Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Cairo Business Mojo. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Welcome to the Cairo Business Mojo podcast, where we deconstruct the methods, marketing, and mindset of successful business people and chiropractors from around the world. And now your host, Dr. Richard Day.
Craig Ballantyne is a former strength and conditioning coach in Toronto, Canada, and has transformed himself into an author, business coach, life coach, public speaker, and entrepreneur. He is the editor of Early to Rise, founder of Turbulence Training, and is a contributing author to Men's Health magazine and a member of the training advisory board for Oxygen magazine. His work has appeared in numerous publications, including Women's Health, GQ, Maxim, National Geographic, Men's Fitness, Muscle and Fitness, and Hers. Craig is the author of the book, The Perfect Day Formula, How to Own the Day and Control Your Life, and holds a Master's of Science degree in Exercise Physiology from McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Welcome, Mr. Craig Ballantyne.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your time with us here today and what you're going to be sharing with our listeners. I got to tell you, I'm so excited I can hardly contain it because I read your book, and I got to tell you, there are a number of books out there that I've seen with a similar theme, but for whatever reason, yours really connected with me, and I was so pumped when you said yes and offered to be on the show.
Oh, well, thank you. What was it about the book that really connected with you? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. And I'll tell you, through Tim Ferriss and his work, I've heard him talk about the Greek philosophers and the Stoic philosophy. And I heard you use some quotes, and it's in the book as well. And I just thought, yeah, I get this. I want to know more about it. So I guess that's a great starting place. Unless I missed anything in your bio, is there anything you want to fill in?
No, that's really fantastic. And that's, the book is about taking that ancient wisdom and applying it to this crazy busy world that we're in and getting ahead and succeeding on your terms.
So for those that are unfamiliar, what is Stoicism?
Stoicism is an ancient philosophy. It's really about, I guess, living a good and moral life. And so for me, what it's helped me do is spend less time worrying about other people, worrying about what other people have, which is a really big problem these days. And the phrase that I took away from Epictetus's teaching, Epictetus is a Stoic philosopher, the phrase that I took away that allowed me to create my book was control what you can, cope with what you can't, and concentrate on what counts. And I applied that to the 3 parts of the day. We can best control our mornings, so we need to take advantage of that. And we cope with the chaos of the world in the afternoon with the systems that I've helped people build. And then we concentrate on what counts in the evening, which is where we go home and spend time with our kids. And you know what that's like, it's really important for you to be present with your children. And what did you say you have? You have 3 children at home?
Yeah, 3 kids under 4. So there's a lot going on here.
Right. And they need you to be present. And, so many parents these days are not present. They're present in their iPhones when they're around their children. And I don't like that. And I help people avoid that so that they can live a full and present life.
Well, that phrase is one of the ones, or the 3 C's, as you call them, are one of the things that really jumped out at me because having some life experience under my belt, there are so many situations we're faced with where we worry all about them, but at the end of the day, we have no power whatsoever to control them. And I think a lot of us get stuck in that because it's an emotional thing. We get fired up about it, and worked up about it. And really that has nothing to do. It's not getting us anywhere. And one of the things I've tried to do really since hearing that, and I've repeated that, the 3 C's to other people that I've come in contact with who are maybe having troubles that they're sharing with me is, figure out what you can do about it. And if there's not anything, take a moment and then move on. I think it's so powerful. It's something I wish I would have heard younger in life. When did you first come in contact with the idea of Stoicism and these 3 C's?
The same as you. I wish I would have come in contact with it a lot earlier. But it was really just within the last 5 years, through a business partner of mine. He introduced me to some of these books. And there's, Epictetus has a book called Discourses. So he didn't actually do any writing, but one of his students took down all of his lectures, not all of his lectures, but many of his lectures, put them in a book called the Discourses. And then the book that I actually recommend to people is very, very small, very, very simple to read. It's called The Art of Living. It's by a woman named Sharon Labelle, and it's a translation of Epictetus's major teachings. And it's kind of like the Tao Te Ching, where you really just read like one page per day. And I kind of call it my horoscope as a joke, because I've gone through it seven or eight times, reading just one page per day. And it always is that one page that you really needed to read on that day, because maybe you were having flare-ups of, keeping up with the Joneses. And then there was a lesson from Epictetus about, getting your mind right and putting things in perspective that gets me at the right time. And so that's what I encourage people to start with. The Art of Living by Sharon Labelle. It's really just a fantastic little book, and it has changed my life. It truly has just radically reduced stress in my life and just made me have a better perspective of things overall.
Well, I will put that in the show notes for anyone who's interested, and I will definitely check it out myself. Let's go back to your younger days, and how did you go from a strength and conditioning coach to a life coach guru guy?
Oh, well, I am not a life coach. I've never, ever will call myself one, and that's not what I do. I am the guy who helps people get their stuff together. Most people use a different word than stuff, but I don't like to swear. So I am not a life coach in any means, but I will help you get your stuff sorted out. And so what I did is I was a strength and conditioning coach. I was writing for Men's Health Magazine. I was selling my workout programs. And that's part of what I wanted to do. But I wanted to help people get their days dialed in. I wanted to help them make more money, get home on time for dinner, and be more successful in life. And, fitness is a part of that. Of course, it gives you more energy. It helps you be fit and lean and have stamina for the days, but it's not everything that I wanted to do. And so I started coaching people and building businesses like mine. So I had my first seminar in 2007 where I helped 50 personal trainers make more money online by coming up with programs and doing the marketing and writing sales copy. And so I've been running mastermind groups in that industry for almost 10 years now. And then I also started writing stuff on productivity, time management, personal development. And along the way, I was reading this newsletter, this website called Early to Rise, which I thought was the greatest website in the world. And I told a bunch of people that I wanted to have a business like it. And then one day, one of my friends, the same friend who introduced me to Stoicism, was talking to the owner of Early to Rise. And the owner of Early to Rise said, I'm ready to move on from this website. I'm going to sell it and start another project. And so my friend said to me, hey, do you still want to have this business? I said, yes. So we flew down to Florida. We made a deal. I bought the business in 2011, and I've been running it ever since. At the same time as still running all the fitness stuff. So I still sell my turbulence training programs. I still sell my bodyweight programs. We publish other fitness authors and nutrition authors. And I've written my book, The Perfect Day Formula, and I write all the content, not all the content, but a lot of content at Early to Rise. And we send out wisdom every day, helping people make more money and be more successful and be better parents and all of this stuff. And so I've been doing that. It's been a 15 plus year journey ever since I started writing for Men's Health in 2000. I was actually sending out my first email newsletter back in 1999. So even before that. And it's really been a wonderful journey. And I'm really at the point now where I'm helping people the way that I want to help people. Just get dialed in, overcome those struggles, overcome the obstacles in their life, the temptations, the distractions, to become more successful and productive.
Well, I was poking around on earlytorise.com in preparation for this interview over the last couple of days, and there really is such a ton of great content there. So we're going to put that in the show notes too for our listeners to go there. I highly recommend that you guys check it out. Let me ask you this. Now, I used to play in a band and kind of had the rock and roll lifestyle. And I got to tell you, 11 a.m. is really early, for a musician. And I have just never been a morning person. I've been more of a night owl. And, but as I've gotten older and don't play in a band anymore and got actually, grew up and became serious, I've become jealous of the morning people. So why is being so productive in the morning important?
Well, it is important, but I don't want people to feel guilty or to say, oh, I got to get up at 5 a.m. I know there's this whole trend to this 5 a.m. club out there. It's this badge of honor that people get up at 5 a.m. And I think it is ridiculous. And in some cases, a bad idea for a lot of people, especially people that try and go from 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. overnight. You're just not going to be able to do that. When I started getting up early, I went from 7:30 to 7:25 a.m. I made that huge jump of 5 minutes, and it was reasonable and tolerable. And then the next week I went to 7:20 and then 7:15 and so on and so forth until I found the right time for me. Because yes, I do believe that getting up earlier than most people is beneficial because there's no phone calls, there's fewer emails, there's fewer distractions, and you have more willpower and more control over your day, which is the first part of my book, controlling your morning, getting the major things done before the rest of the world comes and throws its chaos at you. And if you get up at 10 o'clock in the morning, the world's already thrown a ton of chaos at you before you've even got out of bed. And so it's not going to work for most people. The world is actually built around doing stuff in the morning. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the world it is built. Now, at the same time, I actually have a very good friend of mine who runs a 9-figure supplement company, and he works from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. Those are his prime work hours. And it works for him because he's a night owl. Biologically, chronologically, he just likes to work at night, and his body is suited for that. But not a lot of people have the discipline to work at night. Most people are tempted by Game of Thrones or a book or their family, or they're just too tired to work at night. And so that's why you really should get your most important stuff done early in the day before all that other stuff gets in the way. So back when I was a personal trainer, I had CEOs almost fighting for my 6 a.m. Time slot. And back then I could never figure it out because I was still a young man, and I thought, I just want to be in bed at 6 a.m. Why do these people want to be working out? And then, as you probably realized, working with your CEOs and interviewing them on this show, that's the only time they have for themselves. Because as soon as they get to work, it's like one major crisis after another that other people believe is a crisis that is thrown into the CEO's lap. And the CEO knows that in order for them to be productive, they have to get up and take advantage of the morning. And so, long answer to your question there, but that is the reason why the morning is so powerful. But I also don't want people to feel guilty if they're not part of the 5 a.m. club. It's not so much getting up at a certain hour. It's simply getting up probably about 15 minutes earlier than you are now so that you can focus on getting something done and moving ahead in life.
Well, I've gone through bouts of being really good about it, and then life events happen, and I get, back into bad habits. But in reading your book, over the last few days, I tried just the 15 minutes, and I got up 15 minutes earlier a few days ago, and then 15 minutes earlier than that, and I've started making, we'll talk about this in a bit, but the to-do lists for what you're going to do the next morning, and I've already noticed an uptick and my productivity just in the last couple of days. So the biggest thing, and you said this word back, was discipline. And if I had one word to sum up really what I take away from what you've done and been able to be so successful at, it's discipline. It's saying, here are the things I will do, and I will not waver from them. And with that in mind, I want to talk about your 12 rules. You talk about it in the book. Do you mind going over those and kind of sharing that?
Yeah, but first of all, I want to talk about the discipline stuff. And the funny thing is that I am also a very undisciplined and lazy person. And I built in these systems into my life that make me look more disciplined, but basically are just keeping me out of trouble so that I have nothing to do but do good things. And when you keep yourself out of trouble by putting in systems and the rules that I'm going to talk about and the boundaries that keep you out of trouble, most people can end up doing great things. So going back to that getting up early in the morning. Now, most people have at one time in their life, and probably in the last couple months, woken up really early and just not been able to get back to sleep. And they thought, well, I'm up, I may as well do something. And they get a whole bunch of stuff done before anybody else in the house gets up. And they sit around, they think, wow, that was pretty interesting. I wish every day was like that. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my book. Not so that I'm telling people to get up 4 hours earlier than they are now. But if they just get up a little bit earlier and they get a little bit done, they have that feeling of accomplishment. And having that feeling of accomplishment and progress is very important for every individual to have. There's research showing that when employees don't see progress at work, they're the ones that become disengaged and they're the ones that quit. And so if you're running a team of chiropractors or trainers or whatever it is that you're running in your business, you need to show them that they're having progress. Even if there's, financial struggles in the business, you need to show them that, hey, we are moving ahead. Even though sales are not through the roof right now, we're making the right actions and right decisions that are going to get us to the right thing. And so we are making progress. So stay motivated, stay positive, and keep that momentum going. And so all the way back to what we're going to talk about with these rules, they're just simply boundaries and these set ways of doing things, rituals and routines that allow me to get through my day without requiring on a lot of willpower, without requiring actually a lot of discipline, where I am forced to choose between doing the right thing and the wrong thing. And it also reduces the stress and guilt because I've eliminated a lot of temptations. So that's what the whole book and system is about, is allowing a lazy guy like me to look like a superhero in terms of my productivity and discipline. And so that brings us to the rules. And so everybody should have rules for their life. Just like a computer has an operating system, just like there are rules of the road that we stop at red lights and we go on green lights and we stop at stop signs. Because when you have these operating systems and rules of the road, then everything functions as it should. Everyone gets to where they want to get to safely. Your computer works like it should, and it allows you to do amazing things. But if you don't have rules and you don't have an operating system in place and you just try and, do it like kind of just, freelance and kind of do everything with just like, winging it is the term I was looking for, then you're not going to be successful because you're going to be struggling. You're going to, the day's going to go by and you're going to think, I did all this stuff today, but it wasn't productive. It wasn't purposeful. And now I just feel really stressed. But if you have all this structure in place, that's how you become successful. And so would you like me to go into the specific rules that I have in place for my life?
Yeah, I don't know if we have time for all 12, but some of the highlights and just to give people an idea of what you're talking about.
Right. So I'll start with one, and then I'll tell you about the templated rules that I think everyone can fill in for their own life. And so I have a rule for the time that I get up and go to bed every day. And when I started doing this after years of neglecting it and saying, no, I'm never going to do this because it sounds terrible, I ended up having more energy. I became more productive, more than anything else in my life, more than nutrition, more than exercise. Getting up and going to bed at the same time every day gave me more energy and focus than ever. And so that is one rule that I have for my life. And I think everyone should have that same sort of template, that you get up at the same time every day, 7 days a week. And now, of course, you're going to be out later a few nights of the week, dinners, movies, celebrations, but don't go too far from your wake up time in the morning. Yeah, you're going to be a little bit tired that day. Maybe you can take a nap, but it will allow you to stay on track in the days following so that you're not, dragging your butt for 3 or 4 days because you slept in until 11 o'clock. So then I also recommend that people have a health rule. And for me, my health rules are that I meditate every day and that I exercise 3 times per week. Now, someone else might have a rule that they follow the paleo diet. That might be their one nutrition rule. And as long as they follow that one nutrition rule, everything else is going to fall into place. And then another rule that people should have is what they do first thing in the morning. So for me as a writer, I write for 60 minutes first thing in the morning every day. And for other people who are chiropractors, maybe it's you get up and you spend the first 15 minutes practicing your sales consultation to become a better salesperson, to convince more clients to accept your care so that they get better treatment and they are better off because of it. And so if you get up 15 minutes early every day and you just sit there and you practice and you do role playing with your scripts and you think about better ways to do your consultations, you're going to be becoming a more successful chiropractor. And so whatever it is that is really the number one priority in your business life, make that a rule to focus on it first thing in the morning. And then there should be a rule about the number one thing that you do not do. This is that boundary, that fence that you're putting up around you to prevent you from falling into the trap of temptations and distractions. So, often many people will like to have an after work drink or, a glass of wine with dinner. And then the slippery slope becomes 2 glasses, and then it's 3 glasses. And the next thing you know, you're finishing off a bottle of wine 3 or 4 times a week. And that is leaving you groggy the next morning. You're gaining weight. You're, posting silly things on the internet and you're getting into fights with your spouse. And, a couple of drinks can really lead to some bad decisions. And so then you have to step back and say to yourself, you know what, this can't go on any longer. If I want to be the best family man, the best chiropractor, the best, salesperson, whatever it is that you are, you need to step back and say, okay, I do not drink from Sunday through Friday. On Friday night, then I can go out and have, one drink at happy hour. And Saturday night, I can go out for dinner with my spouse and we can have one or two drinks. But I don't drink Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday when I have to work the next day. And that's a rule for my life because it keeps me out of temptation. And so that's another rule that you should add, something that you do not do. And so when you have those in place, those are good starting points for rules for your life, which put together a great operating system or your set of personal commandments or whatever you want to call it that you live by that allow you to be the best version of you.
One of the ones that I really liked on your do not do list was for arguing, either on the internet or in person, that you just don't engage spending time in that. And it's funny that my wife and I were talking about this the other day. We said, hey, don't you miss on Facebook when people used to just post pictures of what they had for breakfast instead of, getting mad about politics or whatever? But a lot of people really get caught up in this. And I think that is a great rule. Just don't spend time in that. And if it's a personal or interpersonal situation, you apologize, you do what you can to fix it and go. That was one of the best things I think a lot of people would benefit from that you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes from, going back to the Stoicism, you control what you can. So if you're in an argument with somebody, if you're debating somebody on something, you can't control their opinion. You're not actually going to have any opportunity of changing their mind. And so you can't get upset that they believe something because you can't control that belief. And it's just like sitting in traffic. You can't control it. So there's no point in you getting upset. There's no point in your blood pressure going through the roof. You have to step back and think, okay, I'm in traffic. That's just the fact of the situation. Or I'm in an argument with somebody about politics and I believe this and they believe that. And those are the facts. And as long as you look at things objectively like that, then you can say, okay, well, I'm going to cope with what I can't control. I'm going to sit here in traffic and I'm going to perhaps brainstorm some new techniques for training, or I'm going to, think about what I'm going to have for dinner tonight, or I'm going to pop in this audiobook and listen to it. I'm going to make productive use of my time as I sit here in this terrible traffic that I have no control over. And that's the mindset that I take to these confrontations. As an internet entrepreneur, having sold programs to literally hundreds of thousands of people, I have heard every single type of insult that you can possibly imagine from people that don't like my way of training or that don't like me or that think I'm a loser. And I've had people insult my dog on the internet. Of all things,
I'd be kidding.
They said, you and your dog are pathetic. And I'm like, you know what? We probably are. And I really don't care what you think. And so, you just delete it and you move on and you can't get upset about that stuff. And so it doesn't really matter whether your kid's losing their soccer game or you're stuck in traffic. Those are the facts and you need to deal with it because you're an adult and you can't get upset about it. And you need to concentrate on what counts. At the end of the day, what really matters is getting home safely and spending time with your family. So do the right things, make the right decisions, stay out of trouble. That's what it's all about.
Well, I got to tell you, so as we mentioned, I've got 3 kids under 4 years old, and my wife and I own a couple of different businesses, and we are busy folks. And what do you say to the people who say, yeah, well, this works for Craig, and I don't know if you have kids or not. I got to tell you, I got the idea that you don't from the book. Am I right?
I don't yet, no.
Gotcha. Well, what do you say for the people who say, yeah, that's great for him, but look, these rules and everything he's got, this doesn't work in the real world?
Oh, this is my favorite because I have 73 reviews on Amazon as of right now. And my favorite review is from this woman who gave me 3 stars and called it a ripoff. Now, I don't know how you call something a ripoff and still give it 3 stars. But anyways, she went through this litany of excuses as to why it won't work. And then there's a 5-star review from a woman who has more kids, who has more distractions in her life, who has a harder row to hoe. And this woman says, this is great. It's helping me. And it's all a matter of what my friend Joel Marion calls a PMA, positive mental attitude. If you sit there and you say, this is not going to work, then you know what? I can't change your mind. And I'm not even going to argue with you because that's not what I do. And I'm just going to go and concentrate on those 5-star reviews and say, listen, I love your story. How can I help you further? Because there are millions of people out there that I can help. And if you just want to sit there and say, oh, it's not going to work for me because I have 2.1 kids and you only have 2 kids. Well, fine. I don't have time for you. When you are ready to come back and say, you know what, I know this is going to work and I have a positive mental attitude, then I'm ready to help you. But I'm not going to go and try and change anybody's mind. I'm just here to help the people whose minds are open to change.
Yeah, somebody more famous than I am said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Right.
And it's pretty much what you're saying, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I say. I mean, you know, you can say that it's not going to work for you, or you can try it and at least have, you know, prove me wrong that it's not going to work for you. But don't just say it's not going to work for you without trying it.
Well, and one of the things I tell my patients who, have busy lives and schedules and some travel, and can't always do the exercises or, conditioning things I give them to do, I say, do what you can when you can. Something's better than nothing, and always work.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny. I remember getting an email from a guy, and you're going to laugh at this because he was 28 years old, and he wrote an email to me, found my email address through Men's Health magazine. He said, man, will I ever be able to get back in shape at 28 years old?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And again, it's just like, if you believe, whatever you believe is going to come true. And so this guy thought he was over the hill at 28.
Yeah.
And, you know, he thought he had to go to the gym for 2 hours. And I'm like, no, give me 10 minutes and, you know, we can kick your butt and give you results in 10 minutes, even 4 minutes, even 2 minutes. And most people just don't know what they don't know. And so it's up to experts like you and I to come along and say, listen, we've given you some stuff that, yeah, we'd love for you to do 20 or 30 minutes of it. But if you only did 5 minutes of it, you're still getting a lot of value from it. So please just do a little bit. It's better than nothing. And so you're absolutely right there with that's the right mindset. Just showing people good stuff and giving it to them in the most efficient way. And so that they will overcome those excuses. So, I mean, my entire life and career has been built around helping people overcome excuses. And that's what I'm trying to do with this book, just like I try to do with my fitness programs.
Well, as you know, this chiropractic show is geared towards chiropractors. What is your experience with chiropractic? Do you have a view and have you utilized them?
I go to a chiropractor in Toronto. I think he's just, one of these guys who is, so gifted with his techniques. His name is Michael Summers. He's in the West End of Toronto. The great thing about Toronto is you basically just trip over chiropractors. There's so many good chiropractors in Toronto because there's a really great school there. And so I really like going to them for active release techniques, which has just really been helpful to me. I was a meathead training when I was a kid, bench press and not enough rowing. And so I had some shoulder issues and he helped me through that. And then I just, once I started going to him, I was like, oh, now I can just train way harder. And so every once in a while I get a nick and, go and see him and he would help me overcome it. And I've sent all my family to him and friends and he really is a miracle worker with his hands, like I believe a lot of chiropractors are. So I'm a big fan, especially of those who combine it with ART.
Yeah, ART is a great method, and especially for performance athletes or weekend warriors. So it sounds like you are in good hands.
Absolutely. Well,
take us through what a typical day in your life looks like.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I always love telling people what I do. And so I outline it in the book, but also I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I believe that, to me, writing from 4 till 5:30 is kind of like this spiritual thing to me because there's nobody else up and, you're writing when the sun's coming up and it's really quiet and there's no phones ringing, there's no televisions on. I mean, it's just really, really wonderful. And there's a really great book actually called Daily Rituals by a guy named Mason Curry. And he goes through great literary figures, great architects, great artists. And he just shows you how many people were doing the same sort of thing, up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Even Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect, was up designing his buildings at 4 o'clock in the morning. He had the same outlook on this 4 o'clock hour as I do. And Stephen King writes from 9 a.m. till noon every day. So when you're having breakfast, he's writing about the most gory things in the world. And so he's showing you the power of the morning. Again, because most people have control over the morning. And so I'm up 4 till 5:30 writing. If I'm at home in Toronto area, which is where I'm from, then I have to walk my dog. But I meditate, then I walk my dog. Then I will have breakfast. Then I'll write some more. Then I'll exercise, have lunch. And then in the afternoon, I do calls like this because my creative energy is generally gone and I've run out of things to write. And then I'm usually done by about 4 o'clock. Walk the dog again, have dinner, social time, reading. I get away from the electronics probably about 6 o'clock in the evening. I don't watch TV. I read a lot of books, or I just go out and try and do some walking meetups with friends. And then I read a lot of magazines too. And then I just fall asleep because I'm not engaged in electronics, which is what keeps people up. They're checking their iPhone at 9:30 and trying to get to bed at 10. And, it's always that last email that you check. It's always like, oh, I'll just check email one more time. And then it's something from somebody that causes you great stress or, gets you all excited. And the next thing you know, you can't sleep. Is a combination from the email, but also the light emitted from the electronics. So stay away from those if you want to get to sleep and have a good night's rest. So that's my day. I'm in bed 8 o'clock, 8:30. I've just shifted my 24-hour schedule so that I go to bed and get up quite early because that is what works for me.
Well, 4, I don't know if I can manage 4, but I'll do the best I can to get as close as I can to that. But you
got to do what's right for you. That's all that matters, and everybody listening who say, oh, I can't get up at 4. Well, at one time we were all college students getting up at 11, and then eventually we all went to the real world and we were able to get up at 8 and, to get to work on time. And then we got another job where we had to be there at 8 o'clock and we were able to get up at 7. And we can do whatever we put our minds to. And so really it's just a matter of, it's just like training. If you've never run a mile before, you can't go out and run a marathon tomorrow. But if you run a couple of miles, a couple of days a week for many, many weeks, eventually you're able to run a marathon. And that's the same way with getting up, or the same way with anything. It's all just a matter of doing the right thing for you. If you're not meant to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, don't bother with it. Quite frankly, us people who are up at 4 o'clock in the morning kind of like being alone. So that's another reason we get up so early.
Well, that will be a definite goal for me to work towards for sure. In the meantime, I did on my MacBook install a software that automatically, as the sun goes down, it pulls out the blue light. So,
cool.
That's one thing I found helpful, right off the bat. And I've started trying to, limit that time as well. I am, in fact, limiting the time at night. So between that and the yellow light, I'm hoping to have some better sleep and to help me work towards that earlier wake up time.
Very cool. Very cool.
Well, one of the things the book does, you know what I wanted to touch on before we roll too far is, one of the things you talk about in your daily routine is the 10-3-2-1-0. What is that?
Right. So that's the formula for helping people get to sleep and sleep better. So 10, and this has gone viral around the world. It's funny. I've been on Russian television for it, Australian television. Someone just made a video in Spanish and sign language about it and posted it on YouTube this week. It's really funny. It's been in newspapers all over the world. Wow. Because it's really easy for people to remember, but it's also really easy for people to criticize. I think that's the main reason why it's become so popular, because everyone can judge me on it and say that I'm the most boring person in the world. And I get that, people have written entire articles on this in the UK on major newspaper websites about how it's not going to work for them, right? It's not going to work for them because it's too strict and it's too boring and I must be a loser. So, I'm used to it by now, but anyways, 10-3-2-1-0 formula. 10 means no caffeine 10 hours before bed, because the half-life of caffeine is 10 hours. So if you have a coffee at 4 o'clock, you're going to be up tossing and turning if you try and go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. 3 means no alcohol or heavy meals 3 hours before bed. 2 means no work 2 hours before bed. 1 means no electronic screens before bed. And then 0 is the number of times that you're allowed to hit the snooze button in the morning. Now, this is not like for Friday night if you want to go and have a good time. I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying this is the right formula for you if you want to be the most productive at work tomorrow. And if you want to be the most productive at work tomorrow, you have to accept that you can't be Mr. Excitement on the night before. It's just not going to work that way. You can't be the world's most interesting man, the Dos Equis guy, and still get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and be treating patients at 7 o'clock. It just doesn't work that way. So if you want to have a great night's sleep, follow that formula. And people can get more information on that at craigballantyne.com/free gift. I have a downloadable report that people can get there.
Awesome. We'll put that in the links too. Yeah, it reminds me of Seinfeld. He had a skit where he used to say that nighttime Jerry, everyone loved him, but morning Jerry hated nighttime Jerry because he always paid the price.
Right. Right, exactly. And so you just have to go, okay, well, what am I willing to sacrifice for my results? And, what's the right thing for me to do? Is this the right formula for me to follow on a Saturday night when my daughter's getting married? No, your daughter gets married once in a lifetime. So you're obviously going to have a few drinks and you're probably going to crash into bed at, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not saying that you have to follow it every day. I'm just saying you should follow it if you want to have a great night's sleep.
Well, the last half of the book goes from how to make the perfect day to what I guess I could describe as really to make the perfect life or the best life that you can. Can you talk a little bit about how to take, once you've won your morning and then your day, how can you extrapolate this into really a win for life?
Oh, yeah, this is my favorite part of the book, and it's creating a vivid vision for your life. And in this vivid vision, you really need to look into the future about 3 to 5 years from now and write the vision as if you've already accomplished everything. So you write about the exact street you want to live on and the exact house, the exact cars that are in your garage. You're talking about your children and what schools they're going to and what after-school programs they're in and what you and your spouse, give to charity and what charities are involved in and organizations and what your family routines are on the weekend and what hours you work during the day and what your favorite holiday is during the year. And once you have all of this in place, you have that really clear mental picture, then you have the best opportunity to achieve exactly what you want in life. It's having that clear destination so that you have an exact roadmap to get there. But most people, again, they're just kind of winging life and they don't have any idea of where they're going to be or want to be in 3 to 5 years from now. And that's why they find themselves still struggling in 3 to 5 years from now.
Well, my wife and I talked about this concept over the weekend, talking about your book, and we'd been toying with the idea of moving not real far, but to a different area of town. And I said, I didn't tell her anything about the book. I just said, hey, in 5 years, what do you think our business goal is? And she told me, and I said, that sounds great. Now, where does moving fit into that? Is that part of getting us to that goal? And she said no. And we both sort of at that moment realized, hey, moving's not a priority. It doesn't need to happen next year. It could happen 10 years from now. But it really was clarifying. We had a clarifying moment just looking at life and working backwards, which is one of the things that you talked about. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a really, really great example. I often teach people, like, you know where you want to get to and you know the road you want to get to, or you know the road you have to take to get there. And so when people come along in life and offer you these detours, it's really easy for you to say, no, I'm not going to go down that detour because that's going to take me away from the road that gets me to where I want to get to. And so you just illustrated it so well. Thank you for that example.
You bet. Yeah, it was a powerful moment that I had, a takeaway from the book that I really enjoyed. Well, let me ask you this. This show is all about providing actionable content for our listeners. So what single step or series of steps do you think Chiro Mojo Nation could implement tomorrow to start changing themselves and putting themselves on a different path?
Absolutely. The first thing they need to do is set that alarm clock 15 minutes early, get up before anybody else in their family, go down to your kitchen table, sit there with pen and paper, and work on your number one priority in life. That might be the number one problem that you're trying to get out of, or the number one opportunity that you're trying to take advantage of. So perhaps there's a new business coming into your neighborhood that would be a great joint venture partner for you. You're going to sit down, you're going to plan out going over there and making the argument and persuading them to join forces with you. That's your opportunity. You're going to take advantage of it. 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes, 6 days a week. That's 90 minutes. That's 6 hours a month, 72 hours a year of clear thinking time. Now, on the other hand, if you have a problem, like maybe you have $5,000 worth of credit card debt, well, you're going to go down to the kitchen table and you're going to outline, here's all the expenses I can cut. Here's all the ways I can boost my income. And here are some alternative credit cards that have a lower interest rate that I can transfer my debt to. And if you do that 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week, you are going to get out of credit card debt faster than ever because you are being proactive. And most people just don't do any thinking. They're reactive in life and they never plan ahead, and they always find themselves in the same problem. So it really comes down to having that vision and having those 15 minutes to work on the right things for your right life.
I love it. Everything I look at that is successful, whether it's a sports team or a business, it's not happening by accident. It's happening through preparation.
Absolutely.
So I want to shift right now to the bigger picture and talk about some life successes you've had. And before we get to that, let's talk about, well, we've already covered the successes. Let's talk about any failures you've had. In your mind, what's the biggest challenge you've had and how'd you overcome it?
Well, when I was 30 years old, so in 2006, I was going from, I would say, like 3/4 full-time personal trainer to full-time online entrepreneur. And when I was able to do that, all of a sudden I had this freedom in my life. I was able to stay up late. I was able to sleep in. And that actually led to a whole much more stress in my life. And as a result of that, I ended up having these really bad anxiety attacks. So bad. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, I feel kind of stressed. It was so bad that I went to the hospital twice in a course of 6 weeks, thinking I was having a heart attack. And so I actually used the systems that I put in place in my book, the 5 pillars of success, to overcome the anxiety attacks. And that was, the lowest point in my life. At one point I was training an overweight individual, and I had to look at him and say, I need to go to the hospital right now. Even though I looked totally fine, I was just going through a real bad period of anxiety, and he didn't understand it, and it was just really awkward. And, he gave me a ride to the hospital, but our relationship was never the same because he never understood what I was going through. And so that was, again, the lowest point in my life, but I was able to overcome it with everything that I describe in the book.
When you think of the word success, who or what do you think of and why?
I think of my friend Bedros Keuilian. I don't know if you know Bedros. He is in the teaching personal trainers how to get more clients and make more money world. So if you go to ptpower.com, that's his blog. He runs an event every year called Fitness Business Summit with over 800 personal trainers, some chiropractors there too. And he has everything in place. He has a great family. He has a huge franchise that he runs with 300 locations around the world. He just has a great business. He's a really cool guy. He's a lot of fun. And he still gets home on time for dinner. So, he's home at 4 o'clock to play guitar with his son and then play ping pong after dinner with his kids. Really, really great life. And so when I picture success, I picture him.
Well, sadly, we are coming to the end of this interview. I have a few final thoughts as we go. Do you have a favorite book? You've mentioned one or two at least, but do you have any other favorite books you'd want to recommend to Mojo Nation?
Yeah, I think that one book that should be mandatory for all high school students and all for all adults is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. A very powerful book. It just shows you that we are capable of going through so much and coming out the other side better people. And so I think, again, if I was president or if I was king of the world, I would make every high school student read that book just to give them a better perspective on life.
Well, what is the best business advice you've ever received?
Hire a coach. This was the biggest mistake I made. I didn't hire a coach until 2006. I could have afforded one in 2003, but I was too cheap and too stubborn, too stupid, too much of a know-it-all. And if I had done that, I would have released my book years earlier. I'd be helping probably 10 times as many people. I'd be, 10 times more successful. And so I wish I would have gotten a coach earlier in life. And that is what I recommend to everybody listening. If you don't have a coach, get one. That will make the biggest difference in your life.
That is true for sure. Craig, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today. You've really given us some value bombs here that you've dropped with our listeners, and I think we've all got a lot we can go read and learn and start implementing in our own lives. Let me ask you this. What's the best way for people to contact you to find out more about you and your businesses and what you do?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Craig Ballantyne, or you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Craig Ballantyne, or one of our Facebook pages, CraigBallantyneFanpage.com. So any of those, and then, just make sure you go to CraigBallantyne.com/free gift and get those cool little downloads to help you dial in your days. So I look forward to hearing from people. And if they have any questions, just shoot me a note on Twitter and I'll be happy to get back to you right away.
Well, thank you again for spending some of your valuable time with us.
happy to help. This is really fun.
Hey, this is Dr. Day. I hope you are enjoying the show. If you are, please do us a favor and jump on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast at www.chirobusinessmojo.com.